and most have 2 pairs of wings. That makes sense to me because the 2 parts now fit together in a logical way. I could also have used a semicolon, because a semicolon would have worked well there to show the coordination. To my ear, the and sounds better. Number 7, seeing my friend at the concert. Makes no sense, not a complete thought. What about seeing my friend at the concert? I have to add the rest of that. So I'm going to add, seeing my friend at the concert was a pleasant surprise. Now I have my subject and I have my predicate. Was is my verb. Number 8, there are many similar and related organisms. None have all the same traits that insects share. Well, this is a run-on because I have 2 independent clauses, 2 complete sentences, smushed together. I think I'll take that first one and I'll make that a dependent clause. Although there are many similar and related organisms, none have all the same traits that insects share. This makes sense to me because I'm showing now the relationship between the 2 parts of the sentence. Number 9, broke all the speed records in the last race. Well, who broke all the speed records? I'm missing my subject there. I need somebody's name, or I need some noun to make that complete. I think I'll use Janice. Janice broke all the speed records in the last race. Notice that I took that capital B and I made it a lowercase b because, of course, I added the subject before it. Number 10, roosters begin to crow at dawn. They seem to bring a farm to life. Roosters begin to crow at dawn is my first independent clause. They seem to bring a farm to life is my second independent clause. They are run together, so I have a run-on. I'm going to put a semicolon there because the 2 of them are very closely related. So the semicolon to me makes the most logical sense. Next, you have to use correct punctuation and capitalization. Every sentence has to begin with a capital letter and end with the correct end punctuation. The end punctuation can be a period, a question mark, or an exclamation mark, depending on the type of sentence that you are writing. You don't get to use more than 1 mark. In other words, you wouldn't have a period and a question mark together, or you wouldn't have 2 exclamation marks together. If you're using quotation marks, the periods always go inside. The question marks and the exclamation marks can go inside or outside, depending on whether they are part of the quote or not. So that's a matter of logic that you'll evaluate for each individual sentence. I also mentioned to you earlier that correct sentences have modifiers placed properly. Modifiers are describing words and phrases. To modify means to change, and you're modifying by describing something. You decide where to place your modifiers depending on the word that you wish to emphasize, but always place your modifiers as close as possible to the words that they describe, because that way you'll avoid any kind of confusion. Here's an example. In these 3 sentences, the modifier is the word vigorously. It's an adverb. The chef beat the dough vigorously. The chef vigorously beat the dough. Vigorously, the chef beat the dough. In that case, any of those placements is correct because it makes logical sense. But if I have a sentence where it doesn't make logical sense, I get a mistake we call a misplaced modifier. It's placed incorrectly. Misplaced modifiers describe the wrong word. They're exactly what the term suggests. So for example, here's one that has several possible mistakes. The player hit a home run with the green hat. This could mean that the home run was wearing a green hat, or it could mean that the player used a green hat to hit the home run. In either case, it's not correct. What we mean to say is the player himself or herself was wearing the green hat and then hit a home run. So we're going to move that modifier to the correct place by the word player. Now the sentence reads, the player with the green hat hit a home run. Now I have no ambiguity and the sentence is correct. Here's another example. I've taken the modifier only, and by putting it in different places, I've created different meanings. That's okay, except I don't know which meaning the writer wants. Here's one. He ate only the box of cookies. Well, this could mean that he didn't eat any cake, or he didn't eat any apples. Only he ate the box of cookies. Well, this could mean that she didn't eat any cookies. He only ate the box of cookies could mean that he didn't bake them, that he did something else with them. So I'm not really sure what the writer means. I've got to have that sentence clarified by moving that modifier so I understand exactly what is intended. Dangling modifiers appear to modify nothing because there's a word missing from the sentence. Now with misplaced modifiers, you're simply moving a word or a phrase. But with dangling, you've got to provide the part that's missing. For example, walking across the beach, the sand burned my feet. I'm missing something. I don't know who was doing the walking. There's no subject there. I have to add the subject. While I was walking across the beach, the sand burned my feet. These get confusing because you see my or my feet, you see something at the second part of the sentence and you think that it's clear, but it's really not. Here's a list of frequently misplaced modifiers. Almost, hardly, nearly, even, just, only, simply, exactly, merely, and scarcely. But as you learned earlier, any describing word and phrase can be misplaced. So read your sentences over carefully to make sure that you've placed all your modifiers in the correct positions. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and try this yourself. Then come back. Correct each sentence. The first two sentences are misplaced modifiers. She served hamburgers to the children on paper plates. That implies that the children are on the paper plates. The correction is, she served hamburgers on paper plates to the children. Number two, on July 20th, 1969, astronauts Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon, watched by nearly a fifth of the world's population. Well, as that reads, the world was watching the moon, not the astronauts. The correction is, watched by nearly a fifth of the world's population, on July 20th, 1969, astronauts Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon. 3 and 4 are dangling modifiers. They're missing the subject there. While I was walking to school in the cold, my ears froze. When people purchase a cell phone, the wide variety of calling plans and features overwhelms many of them. In this one, people purchase cell phones, not the calling plans and the features. You want to make your sentences concise by eliminating unnecessary words and phrases. We call unnecessary words and phrases redundancy. You want only the necessary details and examples that you need. Here's some examples. Honest truth, most unique, proceed ahead, and small in size. Honest truth is redundant because truth is honest, so you only need the word truth. Most unique is redundant because things that are unique are the most of their category, so you would simply say unique. Proceed ahead is redundant because you cannot proceed in any other direction but ahead. You can't proceed back. So in that case, you would use the word proceed. And small in size is redundant because you wouldn't have anything that's small in color or small in smell, so you simply say small. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and try this yourself. Then come back. Please correct these redundant phrases. Here's the way I fix them. Few in number. Well, I don't need in number, I just need few. Combined together, combined means put together, so I would cross out together. 8 a.m. in the morning, a.m. means in the morning, so I would just say 8 a.m. Final end, well, the end is final, so I would say one or the other, depending on the meaning I needed. Complete stop, well, you can't have a partial stop because then you're still moving, so I would just say stop. Revert back, you can't revert any other way but back, so I would just say revert. Foreign imports, all imports are foreign, so I would just simply say imports. Sum total, either one of those words, but not both. End results, well, the results are the end, so I would just say results. Kills bugs dead, you wouldn't kill bugs alive, so I would just say kills bugs. Free gifts, one of my favorites. All gifts are free, because if they're not free, they're not gifts, so I would just say gifts. And live and breathe, well, if you're living, you are breathing, so I would just say live. You also want your sentences to be clear, because this helps you communicate your meaning to your audience. One of the effective ways to make your sentences clear is to eliminate the initial to be, if you wrote that. For example, if you had it is, or there are, or there is, or there was, you would eliminate that to make your sentence more clear. These are called expletive constructions. Very wordy. It was Friday that we had the test. Why not simply say, we had the test on Friday? Or, on Friday, we had the test. I've gotten rid of that it was, and I don't need it. That makes my sentence much tighter, more concise by getting rid of unnecessary words. You can also make your sentences more concise and create logic by coordinating ideas. When you coordinate, you equate ideas, which means that the two ideas on either side of the conjunction are equally important. You would do this with short, choppy sentences because you're creating logic by doing so. You use the coordinating conjunctions from fanboys, for and nor, but, or, yet, so, or a semicolon. Here's an example. High-level clouds are typically thin and white in appearance. They can appear in a magnificent array of colors at sunset. Well, that's okay, but they're basically two short, choppy sentences. I can make that a little bit better. I could upgrade my writing by combining them through coordination. High-level clouds are typically thin and white in appearance, comma, but can appear in a magnificent array of colors at sunset. Now, working with what we said before about eliminating redundancy, if they're white in appearance, I don't need that phrase in appearance because that's the only way that they would be. So I would take this one step further and I would say high-level clouds are typically thin and white, but can appear in a magnificent array of colors at sunset. So now I've created logic through coordination and I have eliminated redundancy. So now what I would like you to do is pause the program and try this yourself. Combine these sentences through coordination. Then come back. Here's how I did it. Your answers may vary from mine, but go with logic and always make sure that you pick the conjunction that expresses the idea that you want. Number one, cells are made up of molecules and molecules are made up of atoms. In this case, I use the conjunction and to show equal ideas on both sides. A nucleus is the cell's control center. The cell membrane is composed of a double layer of fatty materials called lipids. Here, I used a semicolon to show an even closer relationship between ideas. Number three, cells are made up of trillions of atoms, yet cells are not just tiny bricks. Here, I used yet to show contrast. 4, at first scientists couldn't see much within a cell, so they thought cells were just filled with a jelly-like substance. I used the coordinating conjunction so to show result. Number 5, slime molds are too small to be seen individually, but colonies of slime molds can be seen without a microscope. Here I used but to show result or contrast. You can also write very concise and effective sentences by using subordination. Remember, subordination makes one clause more important than the other one. You have your main clause and you have your dependent or your subordinate clause. Subordination helps you tighten your sentences, creating logic and a better style. And you're going to use one of those subordinating conjunctions such as while, after, although, as, when, where, unless, since, or because. And again, there are many of these. These are just a few. You're going to pick the one that best helps you convey your meaning. If you place the subordinate clause first, you separate it from the main clause with a comma. Here are some examples. Not subordinated. The turmoil of the French Revolution lasted 10 years, period. Napoleon Bonaparte became the dictator. I don't have any logic there. I've not related my ideas. This is much better. The turmoil of the French Revolution lasted 10 years until Napoleon Bonaparte became the dictator. Now I've put the independent clause first and the subordinate clause second, and I've linked them with the word until to create logic. Here's another example. Dogs generally have good vision. They see only various shades of gray. To subordinate, although dogs generally have good vision, they see only various shades of gray. Here I've taken the subordinate clause and I've put it first in the word although. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and try this yourself. Combine these sentences through subordination, then come back. Here are my answers. Compare them to yours. Because it has a brilliant crimson nose and bright blue cheeks, the mandrill is often called the most colorful mammal in the world. Number 2, when the American Revolution ended in 1783, the United States was at a crossroads. Number 1 and number 2, I put the subordinate conjunctions and the subordinate clauses first. In 3 and 4, I put them second. Coal became popular in the 1600s after England had burned up most of its wood to make products such as glass, bricks, and soap. 4, Charles Ludwig Dodson took the pen name Lewis Carroll after he wrote Alice in Wonderland. I did it this way because to me it made the most logical sense to link my ideas. One of the most effective ways to upgrade your writing is to use embedding. And when you embed, you take a part of the sentence and you put it in the main sentence. You literally place it in. That's what embed means. One of the best ways to embed is by using an appositive. An appositive is a group of words that renames the noun. Here's an example. Eudora Welty is a major Southern writer. She was born in Mississippi in 1909. Eudora Welty is the noun. Eudora Welty, comma, a major Southern writer, comma, was born in Mississippi in 1909. My appositive there is a major Southern writer. It renames Eudora Welty. I've set that off with commas to show that I can take it out of the sentence and it will still make grammatical sense. I can also embed by using who, whose, or which. Eudora Welty is a major Southern writer. She was born in Mississippi in 1909, my same example. Now I'm going to embed by using who. Eudora Welty is a major Southern writer who was born in Mississippi in 1909. Which one do you use? You pick the version that best suits your style, your purpose, and your audience. Try to get a variety though, because it makes your writing more interesting. So now what I would like you to do is to try this yourself. Pause the program and rewrite each sentence by embedding phrases and clauses. Then come back. Here's how I did it. Compare my answers to yours. William Taft, comma, the first president to open a baseball season, comma, threw out the first ball in a 1910 game between Washington and Philadelphia. I used an appositive to rename Taft. Number 2, the U.S. Senate, which conducted an investigation that cost $2,000, was infuriated with Dolly Madison's purchase of a $40 mirror for the White House. There I've used which, also with an appositive. In 3, Abigail Fillmore, born in 1798, refused to move into the White House until it had indoor plumbing. All of those are much better sentences because I've created logic by combining sentence parts. You can also write concise sentences by using the active voice. The active voice is much less wordy than the passive voice. The passive voice is a construction whereby the subject receives the action. Our knowledge about the geometry of triangles was enriched by Pythagoras. In the active voice, I take my subject, Pythagoras, and I place it first. Pythagoras enriched our knowledge about the geometry of triangles. It's a much better sentence because it's more direct and to the point. You're going to want to use active voice as often as you can because it makes your writing powerful, vigorous, and clear. There's only one instance when you're going to want to use the passive voice, and that's when you want to avoid assigning blame in writing. So rather than using the active voice and saying, you made a mistake, you would say, a mistake was made by you. But to make that even nicer, you would take off the by you, and you would just say, a mistake was made. And then what you've done is you've spared somebody's feelings, but you've still conveyed your point. So now what I would like you to do is pause the program and try this yourself. Rewrite these sentences into the active voice. Then come back. Here's how I did it. The calf of a blue whale gains approximately 200 pounds each day. My subject, the calf of a blue whale, is first. Number 2, a goldfish in captivity has reached the age of 80 years. My subject, a goldfish, is first. And number 3, cats eat 1/3 of the total amount of canned fish in the U.S. My subject, cats, is first. An extremely effective way of writing concise sentences is by using parallel structure. Parallel structure means that every part of your sentence is in a matching grammatical form. For example, the nouns, the verbs, the adjectives, the adverbs, the prepositional phrases, and the clauses all match. Parallel structure is very effective because it creates rhythm in your prose. All prose, as well as all poetry, has to have rhythm. It makes your writing sound smooth. For example, I came, I saw, I conquered. It's parallel. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That's parallel. Parallelism is used a great deal in speeches to make the writing memorable and smooth. Here's some faulty parallelism. To avoid getting hit by lightning, do not seek protection under a tree. To try to avoid lying down on wet ground and staying on a bike. Here's parallel. To avoid getting hit by lightning, do not seek protection under a tree, avoid lying down on wet ground, and get off a bike. Here's another version. To avoid getting hit by lightning, do not seek protection under a tree, lie down on wet ground, or stay on a bike. As you can see, there are many different ways to create parallelism because you're going to pick one grammatical form or structure and match everything else to it. It might be single words. I went swimming, picnicking, and boating. You're matching all the single words. It might be phrases. It might be clauses. However you do it, though, they're all going to match to be parallel. So now what I would like you to do is pause the program and try this yourself. Rewrite these sentences by correcting the errors in parallelism. Then come back. The Industrial Revolution created the need for mill supervisors, lawyers, teachers, and people who operated telegraphs. Well, that's not parallel because the last part is not parallel. So you'll change that. The Industrial Revolution created the need for mill supervisors, lawyers, teachers, and telegraph operators. The second one is in parallel. During the Crimean War, Florence Nightingale cleaned up the hospitals, improved care, and was reducing the death rate to 2%. I'm okay on the first two parts, cleaned up the hospitals and improved care. My problem is with the third and last part, and here's how I'd fix it to make it parallel. During the Crimean War, Florence Nightingale cleaned up the hospitals, improved care, and reduced the death rate to 2%. So now, cleaned, improved, and reduced, all parallel. Going to my third example, can smarter machines and machines that are faster help us live long, more pleasant lives? And here's how I'd fix it to make it parallel. Can smarter, faster machines help us live longer, more pleasant lives? So now, smarter, faster, longer, more pleasant, all parallel. As I said earlier in this program, you want to suit your sentence style and length to your audience. You're going to try to use a combination of simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences because that creates a very interesting and varied style. However, you're always going to write simply and directly to make sure that you communicate. Remember, your purpose is always to communicate, whether you're entertaining, whether you're informing, or whether you are persuading. To sum up, a sentence is a group of words that has a subject, a predicate, and expresses a complete thought. Remember that your subject is your noun or your pronoun. Your predicate is your verb or your verb phrase. And to express a complete thought means you're making sense. Sentences come in four forms: declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory. Remember that declarative sentences declare or state an idea. They end with a period. Interrogative sentences ask a question. They end with a question mark. Imperative sentences give an order or a direction and end with a period or an exclamation mark. And exclamatory sentences exclaim. They convey strong emotion